I would like to call to order a special board meeting of the West Bay Community District. And with that, Mr. General Manager, can you see we have a forum?
Yes, Mr. President. Director Scott Houston.
Here.
Director John Deere. Here. Director Gloria Gray. President Desi Alvarez.
Here. Here. Can you hear
Thank
me?
you very much. Yes,
And here.
we have a quorum.
Okay, any public comment?
Mr. President, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please let us know by indicating or by raising your virtual hand. Mr. President, I do not see any requests.
Okay. So, any presentations today?
Staff has no presentations.
We'll move on to our main order of business, and that's the consideration and discussion of the Division One vacancy and committee reorganization. You all know, we did receive a letter from our colleague, Director Williams, and Director Williams effectively has submitted his resignation as of January 2nd this month. With that, it creates a vacancy on the board. Director Williams was halfway through his term, so we have approximately 2 years remaining in his term. And that's a lot of the purpose for this discussion. But before that, I would like to recognize Director Williams. I've known Director Williams for a very long time. We were professional colleagues. He has an exemplary career as a public works official, somebody who's been very involved in the water field, very interested in the policy and the direction of the water world, and really congratulate him. And I know I'm going to miss his tenure on this board. Wish he would have stayed a little bit longer, but I understand that sometimes it just gets to the point where we say there's more things to do in life. So I appreciate that. Any other directors would like to make any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
I'm also going to, with regrets, move to accept Director Williams' resignation. He was an outstanding water board director. He was outstanding in his service in various municipalities before that professionally. Also had the background as a city councilman, which is excellent background for the water boards, I believe. And he was a great asset to this particular board. I'm going to miss him a lot. So I am.
Sure.
No, I would also like to echo what's been said, and also I've known Director Williams a long time, believe that or not. But him and I were, of course, elected at the same time, so we both have been on the board. Our tenures were parallel, but I had met him many years ago in our political activism in the South Bay. I knew of his strong reputation, and of course, I was actually delighted when it turned out he was running for his seat at the same time I was running for mine, one or two furthest ends of the district, if you will. But I do think that Director Williams brought a lot to this board. We really counted on and valued his expertise, and we're going to miss him. So I just want to say thank you to him for his service to his constituents and to this board and the staff. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start off with, first, I have mixed emotions about Director Williams' resignation and being here at this place and time, but I would like to congratulate the fact that he is retiring and respect that. But I think it will be, well, you've heard the other board members' comments, and I think we all will miss him. And I've known Director Williams even before he got on the board. And so when he became a board member, and I think that Director Houston acknowledged when he came on the board, but Director Williams has been an absolute asset to the district, and I served with him as a representative on the Met Board, and he was always interested in making sure that reliability was foremost in his mind, making sure that, our goal was to make sure the water was still there, and water conservation is something he would always talk about when he would make speeches publicly, is how important it was to conserve water. And of course, affordability was one of his hallmark issues in terms of policy, and diversity. I mean, he always talked about, the fact that we needed to make sure that when we look at our issues in terms of making decisions about policy, that we do look at it from a diverse perspective, and we need to make sure that we have those people that represent the community that is part of that discussion and part of that system. And so I want to commend him for his service, and I know he will continue to be a part of what we do, because I think his heart is about public service. And so with that, I will be supporting his resignation, but it is with mixed emotions, and wish him and his family the best in his retirement. Thank you.
Okay. So we do have a motion to accept his resignation, and Director Gray, with that comment that you made about accepting his resignation, would that be a second to the motion?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now we have a vote then, Mr. Gentleman.
Director Scott Houston,
Yes.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes,
and President Desi Alvarez.
Yes.
Mr. President, you listed for us a suggested list of committee appointments that you'd like to make. Can I make a motion to I guess what will be to authorize or recognize all of these at once?
You may, but, and that would be fine. I still want to just go ahead and go through it so that it would.
We don't need to do that
Well,
twice.
okay, hold on, I'm sorry. The NCs threw me out. Those are no change. Is that
Right.
what you're saying? Well, what do we,
So,
I thought that there was a couple though that we're a little bit hung up on. Unless you did fix that, right, Mr. President? Okay. What about the ad hoc? Is that
no,
not?
that's the
different?
next one up. So
Okay,
first, if
so-
we got the regular committees,
Gotcha.
which is this list. And, if we're good with that,
Yeah, I have
okay.
no further comment.
Director Gray, you don't have the benefit of the handout I just passed out. But what it is, it includes just basically a appointment for the vacancy that's created by Director Williams' resignation. So it affects primarily three committees, E&O. He was a member of the E&O committee, so the proposed change there is that Director Deere, who was the alternate, would become the member, and that you become the alternate. Then in finance and administrations, Director Williams was also a member. So the change there would be that you, as the alternate, would become the member, and I will become the alternate. And the last committee that made a change or needed a change was the PI committee, where Director Williams was the chair, and his vacancy would then be filled by Director Deere. Otherwise, there are no other changes in the standing committees.
okay, thank you.
So with that, if we can have a vote on the motion, and I believe, did we have a second?
I thought we had a second from Director Gray. Is that correct?
Second.
Director Scott Houston,
Yes.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes,
President Desi Alvarez.
Okay, then we have some ad hoc committees, and there is one ad hoc committee that Director Williams was on, that, needs to be backfilled. Director Williams was on the West Basin Facilities and Operations Maintenance Ad hoc Committee. And, I would like to, appoint Director Houston to that committee, if that is okay with Director Houston.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, so with that, do we need a motion on that one also? Or-
Mr. President.
Those are ad hoc, so,
Correct. I believe that there's a vote of the board required to form an ad hoc committee. I do not believe that there is a formal vote required for the naming of directors to the ad hoc.
so that's the only ad hoc committee that was impacted by, Director, Williams' resignation. So the next item we need to move on to now is, the vacancy created by, Director Williams' resignation. And, since there are 2 years remaining on the term, we do need to have, that seat filled. And the options before us would be to have a special election, which would be very expensive, or the board can, choose to appoint him, or I believe there's a third option of having the board of supervisors appoint him. I would think that it would be in the best interest of this board to have the board, appoint a, new director to fill, Director Williams' position.
Ask the question, who adopted this timeline?
I'm sorry?
Who proposed this timeline?
The timeline was proposed by staff.
I would move that we adopt the staff's recommendation and adopt this timeline.
And Mr. President, if I could just add a couple of things. First and foremost, upon learning of Director Williams's resignation, what we tried to do is look at the current calendar and provide a potential proposed timeline for the board to evaluate potential applicants and move through that process in a timely manner because there are deadlines. It's important to note that none of this is a staff proposal. It's just a potential timeline for us to achieve potentially an appointment. I did want to also point out that there is one correction that is required. Though the ad hoc committee can review applicants and make recommendations to the board, any final applicant interview must be conducted in open session. And so if you look at what's proposed there on February 24th, it does say a closed session, and that should not say that. It should be an open session.
Can I ask a
With,
question?
one second, with all due respect, Director Deere, I think we ought to just discuss it before just kind of adopting it. I think that staff passed this out just so that we have
Fine.
some reference, for kind of timeframes and so on. Director Houston, go ahead.
I think you kind of jumped ahead of me on that, which is great because I think what we need to talk about is just what are we going to do, which is I do think we should look at an appointment process and probably when we make the motion, that's the motion itself. And because there are legal dates and rules that what we decide go into place. I don't know regardless of what this paper says or not. So what really is before us would be to vote on what we're going to do, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right, so I think that we have 3 options. The options being that board should make an appointment to fill the remaining term of Director Williams' seat. The board can choose to have a special election, and the board can choose neither of those 2 and have the board of supervisors make an appointment.
I would move that the board make the appointment.
I'll second that.
Now, I'll comment that in the past, we've done the same thing. The board has made the appointment.
So we have a motion to have the board make the appointment, and I agree that it would be the most expedient fashion to do so. So let's go ahead and have a,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
For discussion time. So with that, because this is what's on the table, is this now where staff could give us the approximate dates of what the rules are? I mean, we could take a vote, but you guys are going to tell us after. I think we should talk about it while it's on the table.
I'm happy to.
go ahead.
So you have 60 days to make the appointment from the January 2nd. So we don't really have the option to have the county. The option is President Alvarez is correct, is if we don't take any action, then the county has a 30-day window to do so themselves. So starting a process now, it's really up to the board and however the board wants to do it. All you have to do from a legal standpoint is appoint someone prior to the deadline. Staff has already taken care of and will be taking care of the notification requirements to the registrar, as well as posting notice in the appropriate locations, which are required by the code as well. So it's just, if you make the appointment within 60 days from a legal standpoint, then you're good. And Director Alvarez is correct. Because we're where we are in the term, whoever is appointed will finish the 2-year term.
Thank you very much.
I have a problem with the ad hoc committee making what does it say here? Doing the interviews and making the recommendation. I think the entire 4-member body of the board should have that prerogative to do that.
And I would agree with you, Director Deere, and I think the general manager kind of addressed that this is kind of just with an outline. And the appointment would have to be made by the board.
I understand that, yeah.
Accepted by the board in public. So we would have to have a meeting, and it's not a closed session item, where we would interview the candidate. Okay, with that, I believe we do have a person and a second, to go ahead and, proceed forward with appointing a director to fill the remaining term of Director Williams.
Director Scott Houston,
Yes.
Director Don Deere,
Yes,
Director Gloria Gray,
yes,
and President Desi Alvarez.
Yes. So then let's move on then to the actual mechanics of filling it, of getting a candidate or candidates and filling Director Williams' position. As was just discussed by several board members, we do need to get candidates, and then we'll have to have a process to do it, for the board to interview and appoint. And all that has to be done in 60 days, which basically brings us to our board meeting of February, unless we want to have a special board meeting at the very, very beginning of March. And I think we can do this within that 60 days. What I'd like to do is form an ad hoc committee for the purposes of basically soliciting applications, which the solicitation process would be posting the vacancy on our website. And I think we ought to issue a press release. I believe that other than that, board members and Director Williams, I think, has made known his resignation. So we should be getting some potential candidates. And then the ad hoc committee would manage that process, review the applications, provide any summary that's necessary, and bring that back and introduce the candidates to the board for the board interviews and then the board appointment. So that's the purpose of the ad hoc committee. And if I can get a motion to form that ad hoc committee, I would appreciate that at this point.
if you appoint me to it, I'll make the motion.
I'm sorry?
If you appoint me to the committee, I'll make the motion.
Why don't we form the
That's
committee
how it
and we
works.
can have a discussion on that?
Make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Director Deere.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to form the ad hoc committee. Can we take a vote on that?
Director Scott Houston,
Yes.
Director Don Deere,
Yes,
Director Gloria Gray,
yes,
and President Desi Alvarez.
Yes. Okay, so now let's talk about the appointment on that, and that is open for discussion. I was going to suggest appointing Director Gray to serve on that ad hoc committee. And
one person only?
no, and I was going to also appoint myself to serve on that ad hoc committee. So that would be the direction that I would like to take, and then we can have a discussion on this item.
I'll just express my negative feeling on this matter because I feel I have more seniority than you by a lot of time, a lot of years.
Any other comments?
Oh, man. I'm a little agnostic on this one. Obviously, you know, you and Director Gray are the Met directors, and there's a number of other things you're working on. So, you know, I mean, I would be almost inclined, you know, unless Director Gray really wants to do it, because there's a lot on everyone's plate, but I might be inclined that Director Deere would be good to serve on the ad hoc.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Can I make a comment? Yeah. The ad hoc committee could include 3 directors, even though that would, I guess, I mean, we would have to have an open meeting if it's 3 directors. So it's up to you and Don, whatever you guys would want to do. If you want me to serve, I will. If Don does not want, wants to replace me, it's up to you and Don. So, but if we do have 3, we could add Director Deere, but that would mean open session, I believe. So maybe we can just have that kind of discussion.
I had a difficult time just that last part, and I apologize. You know, sometimes the audio here is not the best. Can you repeat that, Director Gray?
Yeah, I said, it sounds like Director Deere wants to serve. So the ad hoc could be 3, but that would mean we'd have to have open session, I assume. But if Director Deere feels that he wants to be there and if you feel strongly you want to be there, then certainly it's up to you. You know, I will serve if you want me to, but if Director Deere wants to serve, we can have that kind of discussion. We can have the discussion right now. I don't think serving as Met directors have anything to do with it, but I'm willing to serve if need be.
I agree with your comment, Director Gray. On that, I will go ahead and just have Director Deere and yourself as the members of the ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
That's okay?
Yeah, that's.
All right, so with that, I think that's all of the business we need to follow up on, or if the general counsel.
I just have one process clarification so that everybody's clear. So I understand they're gonna get the applications and potentially could meet with people ahead of time, but anyone who applies, are they all gonna come to the entire board, or is there a sifting through or weeding out process that the ad hoc committee is gonna do?
I would leave that up to, in my opinion, and other board members can say their 2 bits regarding this. My opinion would be up to the ad hoc committee to be willing to make sure that they bring the proper quality.
And it would depend on how many there are. If there are just a few, maybe. Okay, all.
And I would agree with Director Deere's comment that there's only a handful. I'm sure they'll bring it, but if there's 40 applications, I don't think this board wants to interview 40 potential candidates.
That's helpful. Thank you. Sure.
Yes.
I do want to ask a couple of questions because, yeah, it's been over 10 years since the sport's had this experience. It's actually for my seat, Division 4, way back when Director Little had retired early. And I understand the ad hoc committee, so they're going to sift through, if you want to use that term, the applications. But will the full board be made aware of who has applied? That would be a question I would have, as well as, you know, no matter how many people apply, I mean, is it ultimately the ad hoc that decides these are the only ones that get through to the full board? You know, because they're more of an advisory role, is my understanding. So I, you know, just thinking ahead, if the ad hoc decides that someone is not, you know, worthy or merited, that's just 2 people out of the 4. So I don't know if that's fair or right. But I just want to understand these mechanics. So I had 2 questions there.
But why don't we make it so that if any board member who's not on the ad hoc committee still has the prerogative of bringing someone forward if he wants to?
Well, no, that's not our call to bring people forward. They've got to apply, and we can tell everybody.
I don't mean that. I mean, once they've applied, the ad hoc committee does their thing and makes a recommendation.
Hmm.
If you feel there's somebody that we've overlooked, you could bring them forward.
Well, I'm just asking. So by the way, there's a deadline for applications though, right? There will be a deadline. Nobody is going to really be meeting on anything till the deadline passes, which we don't know what the deadline even is,
That
right?
was the last thing on the agenda.
Okay. Oh, it is?
On my agenda.
But your agenda, see, we don't have any items, so I don't know. But what I want to understand is,
Go on.
okay. I'll-
Go ahead,
I'll
Director
be
Gray.
quiet.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand Director Houston's comments. So you want to make sure that all the board members are aware of anyone who applies. Is that correct, Director Houston?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that Don and I can meet and take in the input that we get today in terms of what you guys want as the process, and come back to the board and let you guys know what the process is. I mean, I think it's important to hear the input from everybody on the board to give to this ad hoc committee that this is the way that you'd like to see it function. So I think today we just need to take in that information and then come back and let you guys know what the process is and move forward with that. Would that make sense?
Mr.
Don,
President,
you're the
if I could
only
just,
person.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay, I think what the easiest way to do this in terms of providing some direction to the ad hoc committee, as Director Gray just kind of alluded to, would be that as the applications come in, the application period, what I was gonna suggest is it's basically out there now, but that we officially make it effective as of today and allow a 30-day period, which puts us at the beginning of February. And then that's plenty of time to review the applications and then come back for the board interviews at the end of February at a regular board meeting. And so that would be the overall process. I think at the end of the 30-day period, it would be appropriate, whatever number of applicants come in, that the ad hoc committee would then just share that with the rest of the board, and that can be done via a simple memo that would be sent out and saying, here's the applicants that we have received. If that's okay, and maybe we can just provide that as the direction to the ad hoc committee. Open for comment.
Yes, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I just want it to be understood upfront that the ad hoc, of course, is going to do the real work and due diligence of interviewing these people and vetting them, et cetera, but they will only make a recommendation. The full board will decide. But the full roster would probably still be there, whomever that is, right?
Right.
They might say, we're recommending one out of the 8 people or whomever, but we have full access to who those are. So that makes sense. But we also need to determine what exactly is an application. What are they bringing in to the ad hoc committee or to this agency? And how you're advertising this.
I'm assuming that any applicant would submit a letter expressing, if I was applying for a vacancy on a board, I would submit a letter, one, expressing my interest for the appointment, and that I would like to be considered as a candidate for that position. And then I would go on and say why I am worthy of being appointed to that seat.
Mhm.
That's all I'm expecting. I'm not expecting a full presentation like, if you were going out for hiring a consultant or something. But you would want a candidate, you would want to know a candidate's background, qualifications, and why worthy of appointing to this board. And I would assume that any candidate that's seeking that appointment would be making such an application, submitting such a letter application. Any other comments?
I have a question. Can any of the board members attend the ad hoc committee meetings like we do other committee meetings?
No, that's the whole intent of the ad hoc committee is to facilitate moving forward with it.
I can't attend, just,
Unless you notice it and make it a public meeting that's agendized for the public to come to.
If the mayor, another director there, it becomes three.
I understand. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Our legal counsel wants.
I was gonna say, I think what President Alvarez has described works from a process standpoint. Once the application deadline is up, those applications in the name are public records. It could be shared with the entire board. And then also at that time, the ad hoc can decide whether they want to indicate who they're recommending would be interviewing. And then a board member would have an opportunity to make a request to add someone to that if they wanted to.
But if it's after the deadline, it's too late. Are we setting, I mean, we're kind of setting a 30-day deadline, or is that arbitrary?
You mean after the deadline if someone hadn't submitted an application?
Right, or, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to have a
You,
deadline at some point.
I would suggest, let's say you then had a potential candidate came after that
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
Because otherwise it's an open-ended process, and what we need to make an appointment within 60 days. So the whole idea is that we have an ad hoc committee that manages the process, make sure it's robust enough that we're gonna get, whatever candidates are interested in, being appointed to fill the remaining term of Director Williams' office.
Mhm.
But at the board meeting, if any candidate comes up, they can obviously introduce themselves, which will be public comment, and the board at that point, I would believe, depending on what the mood of the board is, it would have to be a majority of the vote of the board voting to consider someone who had not previously applied.
Correct.
The board
Assuming that-
have that,
Absolutely.
that flexibility.
The board have that flexibility, whether process you set up, if the majority of the board decides to shift it a little based upon circumstances, they can do that.
Okay, these are the kind of things I'm just trying to figure out and understand, because by the way, I have full faith in this ad hoc committee, Director Gray and Director Deere, to do the vetting, and I appreciate that they're stepping up to do it, because, we've all got a lot on our plates right now. So I trust with their judgment and so on, but also knowing that at the end of the day, it all comes down to that final meeting here at the Board of Directors. And by the way, it can be 60 days or before, because our February board meetings before the 60-day time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Otherwise, we'll probably stretch into the beginning of March. but
Right.
I think we have, the 30 days is the more critical part of getting, some applications in and so on. And I think
So-
that it's probably a sufficient period of time. And then the ad hoc committee can
Okay, perfect.
make sure that it's as robust as it needs to be.
I have one more question, Mr.
Go ahead.
President. So, and then my other question is on the outreach. So I do understand, sounds like a press release is in process or will be going out that thanks Director Williams for his service, lets people know there's a vacancy, and that this board has decided there's going to be an appointment process. Here's the key deadlines, which you all will work with the ad hoc to fill in the blanks. But then not only is there a press release, I mean, how else, is there any other way that we're going to be outreaching?
The other way was we're going to post it on our website.
Okay,
I think that's all we need to do.
I think legally probably, or that's probably going above and beyond, but I'm just.
yeah, legally, we're required to post in 3 locations, which would probably be here and maybe wherever Desiree typically would do our notices. But on top of that is, I think, what you're talking about.
Does it have to be posted in those cities or just? Well, it says post application notice at city clerk's office of Division 1 cities. So that's not,
That would be the only.
right?
That's the area that the applicant has to live in.
Yeah. So that's what I'm getting at.
It's required to be done within the service area. It's smart to do it in the area where the division is. So that's our intent.
I think that would probably be the right thing to do, is put it in each of there's 5 cities, I think, in that division. And however else, if anyone wants to go above and beyond to put it, if you advertise it in some way besides the website, I don't know, but just making sure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments? If not, I think we can conclude the item. Mr. General Manager. you have-
Well, I just want to to somewhat summarize, what I heard you say, which is a small deviation but not a problem, was that you wanted to leave the application process open for a period of 30 days, which means that staff needs to be responsive and get that posted as soon as possible to allow that 30 days and then allow for enough time to vet and take action. Secondly, we do have our public information education staff here taking down what is being done. We will have a draft press release available for the president's review no later than the close of business. I'll contact you to let you know when it's in your inbox so that we can get approval, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. And then we'll proceed as directed today.
So effectively, 30 days from today, we'll get that press release out, get it up on the website, and then send out notices to the city clerk's offices. So we cover the 3 posting locations of the Division 1 cities. Okay? Great.
I'm sorry to go on, but we'll be just under 30 days that you'll have to make a decision once all the applications are in. So obviously recommendation would be for the ad hoc committee to be meeting on day 31 or whatever, so that you can give yourself opportunity. If the meeting doesn't work, you could have another special that kind of.
Just one last
Go ahead.
note on this. My assumption is the language would be something like, the board of directors, because we've declared a vacancy, the board of directors requests that applications be submitted by X. I mean, we can't, if things come in after, at the end of the day, they still got it right, but like, we're requesting that the applicants in by a certain date so that the ad hoc can do their due diligence. I'm just saying for language purposes, because.
Well, the board has the discretion to set a deadline. If somebody came afterwards, they could say, you missed the deadline.
For the board.
That's what I mean.
It's up to the board.
We can't firmly say, if you didn't get your application in, too bad. They literally can come in
They could always come in,
You
yeah.
can always come in and make,
Yeah.
in the public comment, say, hey, I didn't submit my application, but I want to be considered by the board today, when you're interviewing candidates. And the board at that point, as we've discussed,
Right.
can make a motion, and if it's the desire of the board to consider it, it does. And if the board decides not to consider it, the board doesn't have to consider it. Okay?
I mean, there's a little bit of arbitrarity in
Yes.
here. There's nothing 100% firm. The law is the law. The law really is within 60 days. You need
See if you want to
get
use
it
that
done.
term.
There you go. Okay, so by all accounts, I think I'm satisfied with what we've discussed.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. President, this is assuming that we've concluded item,
Item
our action item. I do have an item unrelated, just to give brief update to the board of directors. Obviously, I want to acknowledge the fire that's multiple fires taking place currently in Los Angeles County. Wanted to point out that West Basin staff was very busy very early today, looking up not just the impacts of the fire on some of our staff members, but obviously within the industry as well. I wanted to let everybody know that we have contacted the city of Malibu as well as all of our partners up there. We are hoping that everybody's okay and that the city is not too badly impacted. But I want everybody to know that in coordination with the city of Malibu, we've agreed to postpone this Saturday's Rain Barrel event in Malibu. We'll be looking to reschedule that, but I wanted the directors to know. Also, and very similarly, West Basin made the very tough decision to postpone and cancel tomorrow's Juanita Milano McDonald Regional Water Recycling Facility, our ribbon cutting ceremony that was supposed to take place tomorrow. As you know, that project has been underway for a very long period of time, and we're very excited to celebrate the completion of that. We did have partners from all of our contractors to our construction manager and the design firm. And we also had our partner from the State Water Resources Control Board, not just staff, but also one of the members of the board itself set to attend. We have notified everybody personally with phone calls, sent out follow-up emails. I do want to say thank you to all of our partners that made that project possible. And I want to acknowledge, that none of this would be able to be at this point, with the project completed, without just the complete total effort. So I also want to say thank you to staff. We're very sorry to have to cancel that event, but I also want to let the board of directors know that we're doing everything we can to let everybody know. So that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Okay. We don't have any other items, so at this point, if there's any other director's comments, this would be the time to make them. So we'll start with you, Director Deere.
Yeah.
Director Houston.
I just want to say, of course, because yeah, it's been really tough. I mean, it's really tough. And of course, part of our service area has been affected, and our neighbors in Pacific Palisades, and I personally know people who've lost their homes at this point. I can't imagine yet when we get a chance to go up in those areas to see literally the decimation of the west side. And I'm hearing Topanga Canyon had a lot of damage and places are gone, as well as parts of Malibu. So by the way, I think that was the right call. We cancel the event tomorrow. We cancel that event on Saturday. I just, I think that I can't even fathom what's going on at that. We've already been through Woolsey years ago. Everyone's just pulling together like they are, and these fires exploded overnight. It's incredible. I guess in the bigger picture, it reminds me, and I was talking to Gus about this really, I mean, these fire escaping workshops and every little bit of community outreach we've been doing, I think it's meaningful. But right now, I think in the bigger picture for water, and of course, they had a press conference, and Janice from LADWP was there and talked about the water pressure. And I was driving over here, and I'm hearing about LA County, the water pressure is down, over in that fire toward Altadena. I mean, the water people do matter, right? The infrastructure matters, the public works people matter, the utilities people do. I think if nothing else, it reminds everyone of why our industry exists and what we do, both public and private. And so I think it also makes us wake up that, what does the future hold? These things come in fast and furious, and we as a society just aren't prepared. So I think what's going to be interesting coming out of this is, again, more lessons learned, and how can we be leaders in our industry, and how can we continue to attract people to our industry, because we're doing the work and making a difference, and it's exciting. People are counting on all of us right now, on the policy side, yes, but on the day-to-day groundwork. And then also just literally the resilience. I mean, the resilience of the infrastructure, the systems, where do people go? These things came through so quick. And people, most of them, were probably thinking they live in an area, I am not going to be affected by this, some of them. So I look forward to when this is settled, about how we can all think again outside the box of what we can do. And it'll also be something when we think about what we're advocating for, work with the county and the federal government and the state. But I think it just opens up myriad of concerns that we as a community have got to address. So, I know it's another wake up call. And so I'm just already putting it out there to staff and my colleagues. This is our time to continue thinking about the future for where we live. So, thank you.
Director Gray, do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Just briefly, I won't say a lot, but I do want to express my concern by those who are impacted by the fires, not just in our service area, but throughout the county and so forth. I do want to mention that this morning I was watching TV, and Senator Ben Allen was on there, because there was a report that water there was no longer water in that area. And so he explained the fact that because of so many fires there, it was not the lack of water, it was the way the water needed to get to where it needed to get, how it needed to be pumped uphill. There was plenty of water, but I commend those folks who are out there fighting the fires, the fire department and all the agencies involved. And so I think, there's always a learning lesson when you have any kind of disaster like that. And I think we're all up to the challenge of looking at what is happening and seeing how we can address it in the future. But thank you for the conversation this morning to replace our director again. I wish Director Williams the best, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Director Gray. I would like to also speak a little bit about just the calamity that's in our region. It started yesterday with the fires in the Palisades area. I was pretty shocked when I learned about it. I was at a job site and got a text message early afternoon, shortly afternoon, that fire was in Pacific Palisades. I found that wow, kind of incredible that that area would be burning. Normally, I think a little bit further north, we're more used to Malibu fires and so on, but not that far south. And that was pretty incredible. And it has affected a lot of people. 30,000 evacuated from that region. The calamity that we've seen on television is pretty unbelievable, very scary. It'll be a shock to everybody at the end when everything clears up and people actually see that. And the analogy or the terminology of saying it's like a war zone can't be more appropriate for what we're going to see up there. I think that the water industry does an excellent job of providing water. And a lot of the comments that have started to appear this morning in the press, and I think that Ben Allen, Senator Allen tried to address, is that we do have plenty of water. It's not a water shortage that affects firefighting. It's the fact that the demand has incredible flows. A lot of these fires happen up in hillside areas. Hillside areas have zones. Each zone is usually has a storage reservoir associated with the zone, so you pump up to storage. Those storage reservoirs are sized to meet basically the peak demands for that zone and fire demand, but fire demand typically is 1 or 2 structure fires. It is not a fire storm. And when you're meeting a firestorm, you have multiple hydrants turned on, people leaving their spigots on because they want to just leave the hose running when they're evacuating their property to try to protect their property as much as they can. And that puts a tremendous demand on that storage, and that storage goes to zero right away. And then what happens is that you got to pump back up, and those storage reservoirs are not intended to be filled in a matter of an hour, much less an hour when there's that much demand on the system. They said the whole idea of the process, and it's been very well designed. I think the county and all of our purveyors that we serve and that serve that area in the city of Los Angeles have done an excellent job. So it's not their fault. If anything, they should be commended for the investment they have made in the infrastructure and recognize that the infrastructure is there to meet not just your regular demands, but stressful demands on the system, but not firestorm. And not quite sure we can ever design for that. There's not enough money in the world to provide the type of facilities to basically meet this kind of thing. And it's very unfortunate, but the water industry has done a very good job and continues to do a good job. And it's not that we don't have water available. There's plenty of water available. It's just meeting the instantaneous demand of delivering that water that becomes a problem. With that, I think that we should keep all of the folks that are being impacted in our prayers and wishing the very best in this situation. I'd like to return to Director Williams' resignation, and traditionally, I'm not quite sure what has been done in the past, but I would request that we prepare a formal plaque to present to Director Williams in recognition of his service on this board.
Mr. President, I will work with you directly as far as formulating that plan. I would let you know that I had the opportunity to discuss options and opportunities with Director Williams. And so I got a little bit of feedback from him, and so perhaps we can work through that as well.
I don't think he wants a plaque.
I'm sorry?
I don't think he wants a plaque. I could be wrong, but
Well, we can reach out to him.
new car or something, maybe.
All right, with that, if there's no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you, Greg, let's go ahead.
Yes, I did want to mention that some of the Met directors who live in the Pasadena, Altadena area, I think some of them lost their homes, and I think one of the employees, so I did want to mention that in the fire.
All right, thank you for that information.
All right.